Vinicius turned down a new contract, and could he be heading to the Premier League? Arsenal set to sign one of Newcastle's biggest stars. The reasons why Pep Guardiola will not be taking charge of Italy have been revealed. And Darwin Núñez be on his way to Barcelona? Italy wanted Pep Guardiola. They dreamed of him as the man who could reboot the Azzurri after all the failures of recent years. Talks were held, a long-term plan was presented, support was mapped out, a broad scouting network, several directors, every condition needed to work properly. Lovely project, serious intent, one problem, the price. According to Gazzetta dello Sport, Guardiola put his value at £17 million a year. 4 years comes to £68 million in total. For scale, Carlo Ancelotti, coaching Brazil's national team, earns £8.5 million a year, already a record for an international manager. Pep wants twice that. The Italian FA, put politely, do not have those resources. The gap between what Italy can offer and what Guardiola wants is astronomical. They're operating in different financial galaxies. Money isn't the only reason this one won't happen though. Guardiola spent 10 years at Manchester City. That would drain even the most committed person. He's spoken himself about wanting a break, a chance to breathe, reset and recharge. Italy tried to convince him through the national team format. It isn't the daily exhausting grind of club management, they argued. It's a different rhythm. Pep listened, thought about it, and decided that was exactly the format he didn't want. Because if he returns to work, he wants the daily stuff, the pitch, the training sessions, the process. International management is scouts, delegates, and occasional camps. Not his thing right now. Italy will have to find somebody else. Andrea Pirlo is being named as the leading candidate, ahead of both Roberto Mancini and Antonio Conte on the shortlist. Neither of those two are especially obvious options either, given their records with national teams and clubs. Guardiola, meanwhile, is under no pressure whatsoever. Not hard to see why. He has earned over £274 million before tax across his career. 38 million at Barcelona, 44 million at Bayern, 193 million in base wages alone at Manchester City before title bonuses, and there were plenty of those. He started at Barcelona on 1.3 million a year. By his final City contract in 24, he was earning 21 million annually. Quite the progression. A man with that sort of financial cushion can afford the luxury of waiting for the one offer that genuinely excites him. Italy's FA weren't that offer. Not financially, not in the job itself. Pirlo can prepare for the call. 19 years old, 13 goals, 10 assists, 36 matches, 1 year in Germany after a modest spell at Leganés. That's the essential story of Yan Diomande, RB Leipzig's Ivorian winger, at the center of this summer's hottest transfer race for a young player. According to Bild, Arsenal and Manchester City have already made it clear to Leipzig that they're prepared to pay a 9-figure sum, more than £85 million. That is what forced PSG to speed up sharply. The Parisians realized that if they kept dragging it out, somebody else would nick the player. Diomande scored or assisted every 118 minutes. For a teenager, that's elite output. The sort of productivity that tends not to go unnoticed. No surprise then that several of Europe's biggest clubs see him as one of the major assets of the coming window. Each contender has its own reason. Arsenal see him as a replacement for Martinelli, who has struggled badly over the last 2 seasons. One league goal rather speaks for itself. Manchester City are looking at wingers because Savinho's future at the Etihad is uncertain. The Brazilian hasn't been getting minutes, and rumours of a Tottenham move refuse to go away. PSG are playing a simple game. Buy one, keep another. Their own Barcola interests Arsenal, so using Diomande to fill a possible gap makes sense. The player himself appears to prefer Paris. That gives PSG a psychological advantage in the talks, not a financial one. Liverpool made the first move, offering £85 million. Leipzig rejected it without discussion. Their minimum figure is £103 million. That's where it becomes interesting. If PSG aren't ready or aren't in a rush to put that money down, Arsenal, City and others have a genuine chance. Diomande's agents, according to sources, are already trying to push PSG into opening official talks with the German club immediately. They're worried the deal could slip away to a rival. It's also worth remembering what Leipzig sporting director Marcel Schäfer said a few weeks ago. The player isn't going anywhere. When directors say that, he usually goes somewhere. PSG are ahead, but only just. £70 million. That's what Arsenal are prepared to put on Newcastle's table for Bruno Guimaraes. The Sun say the London club are preparing an official bid. This is no longer the old business of feeling things out through intermediaries. When the figure was 60 million, the number has risen. Arsenal's position has hardened, and that's because they now have a card more valuable than any fee, the player himself. Guimaraes has told Newcastle he wants to join Arsenal. The 28-year-old Brazilian, one of the league's best holding midfielders, has simply presented the hierarchy with a fact. In English football, that usually means one thing: a transfer request is hanging in the air even if it hasn't formally been submitted. Arteta identified Guimaraes as a priority for the summer a long time ago. Now he has the strongest possible argument in negotiations: the footballer's own wishes. Newcastle are standing firm. Officially, the captain isn't for sale. Yet there's something interesting behind that firmness. The club aren't annoyed by Arsenal's interest itself. They're annoyed by how Arsenal have gone about it. No direct contact, no official talks between the clubs. Everything has been through intermediaries, press leaks and declarations of intent, but not one normal director-to-director phone call. By the way, since we're talking about communication, those watching a 10th video in a row while stubbornly refusing to hit like, "Everything all right there? Finger seized up? Let's test the equipment." One click below the video and I'll know you're alive and still connected. Right, carry on. Newcastle publicly called that approach unacceptable, which is mildly amusing when they also regard 70 million as insufficient to begin negotiations. Their opening position is £92 million. If Guimaraes formally submits a request, it goes up to 100 million. Newcastle's logic is clear enough. This summer, the club have already lost Tonali. Tottenham paid a fee that could reach £100 million with add-ons. Anthony Gordon left for Barcelona for 69 million. The spine is being dismantled piece by piece. If the captain goes too, with Newcastle also having missed out on the Champions League, that stops being transfer policy. It becomes demolition. That's the whole trick of it. No European football is a killer when trying to keep hold of key players. Guimaraes knows it. His agent knows it. Arsenal know it better than anyone. The player is on holiday, and there are reports he may simply fail to turn up for pre-season, a classic way of forcing the issue without making too much noise. Arsenal have already missed out on Morgan Rogers this summer. Chelsea got him for 117 million, despite Arteta's long-standing admiration for the forward. Guimaraes is a completely different case and a completely different position. A holding midfielder in his prime, with Premier League experience, capable of breaking play up and creating as well. Exactly the sort of player Arteta wants in the middle. Exactly the player Arsenal are willing to stretch their budget for. The gap between 70 and 92 million looks large. Once the player has said, "I want to leave," those gaps have a habit of narrowing rather quickly. Frenkie de Jong is injured again. This time, it's the medial collateral ligament in his right knee. Barcelona have confirmed it officially. There's no recovery time frame yet. De Jong says surgery is not being considered for now. They'll monitor the situation. If an operation is needed though, the midfielder will be out for at least 5 to 6 months. That would mean no return before January 27. Mundo Deportivo point out that this is not the first, or even the 5th, entry on the Dutchman's medical record. De Jong's injury history at Barça is its own document at this stage. A calf problem in 2020, muscle issues in 21 and 22, a knee injury in March 23. Then came the worst spell: syndesmosis damage in his right ankle against Celta in September 23. 14 matches missed. He returned, then injured the same ankle again against Athletic in March 24. A month later, there was a third recurrence during El Clasico. More than 5 months off the pitch, Euro 24 missed with the Netherlands. After all of that, De Jong fought his way back into the side and became important for Hansi Flick again. That's why the current situation is especially irritating, not only for supporters, but for the club too. And Barca appear to be annoyed on a separate level. Barcelona officials did not know the full scale of the problem, while De Jong was with the Netherlands squad at the World Cup. The club believe earlier diagnosis and quicker communication could have changed the treatment approach from the start. That's diplomatic language. For a simpler message, they were told when it was already too late to change anything. De Jong is 29, the age when the body starts sending invoices for accumulated workload. Managing that bill is the job of both club and player. Barca can't rush him back simply because there's now a hole in midfield. The Catalans have midfield talent. They can cope without him. A fit De Jong, though, offers a completely different level of control on the ball and progression from deep. Nobody else reproduces it. Patience. Nothing but patience. The surgery question remains open, and Barcelona cannot afford to get his rehabilitation wrong for a second time. Joshua ZIRKZEE is returning to Serie A. According to Gazzetta dello Sport, the Dutchman has given Juventus his initial approval. Frankly, that may be the best news for everybody involved. For United, who need to find somewhere for the player. For Juventus, who need a striker, and especially for ZIRKZEE, who simply needs to start playing football again. 2 years in Manchester have been a failure. No gloss on it. 9 goals in 75 matches across all competitions. In his first season, he was understudy to Højlund, who was hardly finding life easy in the squad himself. In the second, Šeško arrived to replace Højlund after his move to Napoli, but ZIRKZEE still remained third or fourth choice. Even when Šeško dropped out of the picture, Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo were rated ahead of him in attack. That's no longer competition. That's a signal. Neither Amorim nor Carrick, who came after him, see the Dutchman in the squad. United have set their price at £30 to £34 million. They're open to creative formulas, including a loan with an obligation to buy. This isn't a bid to squeeze every last pound out of a deal. It's a desire to remove an extra name from the wage sheet. Juventus, conveniently, are interested in those kinds of arrangements. The driving force behind this is Juventus's new technical director, Frederic Massara. He tried to agree a ZIRKZEE deal back in January when he was Roma's sporting director. He held talks with the player's agent, Kia Joorabchian, but nothing came of it then. Massara now has a different club, different resources, and, seemingly, a different motivation to get it over the line. Juventus don't see ZIRKZEE as an alternative to Kolo Muani either. They want both. After finishing 6th in the league and going out of the Champions League, the Turin club clearly aren't planning to save money in attack. That decision says plenty on its own. Bologna remains ZIRKZEE's best career memory. That's where he came alive. That's where he was noticed. Serie A, with its pace and tactical shape, plainly suits him better than the intensity of the Premier League. Roma and Napoli have already dropped out of the race. Juventus lead. The key is making sure the price does not become the obstacle. Juventus's budget for outright purchases is traditionally limited, while United are good at keeping a straight face even when selling failed signings. Manchester didn't work. It happens. Vinicius Jr.'s agents are doing their job. That's the blunt description offered by Spanish journalist Ramon Alvarez de Mon, who follows the Real Madrid situation closely. Real and the players' camp publicly insist they both want a new contract. In reality, negotiations are not moving at all. Vinicius's representatives see no reason to sit down again until the club brings something fundamentally different to the table. So far, the club haven't. The Brazilian's deal runs out in the summer of 27. That means his agents are now at the perfect point to quietly test the market without any rush. which is exactly what they're doing. Álvarez Dumont says it openly. The players' camp are finding out who would be willing to sign him and on what terms, in 26 or 27. They are mainly speaking to Premier League clubs, and among all those who replied to the cautious inquiries, one gave a clear and unambiguous answer. Yes, but only if Vinícius arrives as a free agent in 27. That club is Liverpool. It's important to be clear about what that means. Liverpool are not negotiating an immediate move. Nobody is preparing to pay Real Madrid a release clause. It would be colossal. The Merseyside club have simply set out their stance. If Vinícius becomes available for free, they'll be there, waiting. That isn't an offer, it's a signal. But it is a signal the players' agents heard exactly as they wanted to hear it. Quick pause. My figures say 80% of you are those irreconcilable negotiators who watch every episode but refuse to subscribe on principle. Let's not turn this into a Real Madrid situation. Subscribe and switch notifications on now, so tomorrow you're not digging through your search history when the next inside bomb goes off. Right, on we go. Bayern and PSG are also watching the situation. Both understand the maths perfectly well. A player of that level becoming a free agent is the sort of event that happens once a decade. Not missing the moment is the minimum requirement. For Real Madrid, the pressure will only increase each month. While talks are frozen, the clock ticks in the player's favor. The situation could still change during the season. Much depends on the team's results, Vinícius's role, and the general mood inside the club. For now though, Real have taken no real steps towards an agreement, so there will be no fresh meetings. The financial gulf remains the major stumbling block. The details are not public, but the divide appears to be about more than a few percentage points. The sides seem to have fundamentally different ideas of a fair wage. Until that changes, this is how it continues. Real keep up the public facade, Vinícius's agents quietly explore the options, and Liverpool wait for 27 with very visible patience. Nico Williams is back in Arsenal's sights. According to Ekrem Kanur, the London club have resumed contact over the Athletic Bilbao winger, while sporting director Andrea Berta studies the details of a possible deal. Liverpool are interested too, but Arsenal currently lead the race and, according to sources, are not about to back away. This is Arsenal's second attempt at Williams. They wanted him last summer as well, alongside Barcelona. The Spaniard then made a decision many considered strange. He signed a 10-year contract with Athletic. For a 24-year-old of his level, that was a declaration, not just a bit of paperwork. The Basque club breathed out and assumed the matter was settled. Not quite. The contract contains a £77 million release clause. For Arsenal or any other major Premier League club, that's a manageable figure, which makes all talk of the player being unsellable rather conditional. Put the money on the table, and the conversation begins. The other question is the player's own financial package. Williams earns £282,000 a week. That is a serious sum, and alongside the release clause, it makes the deal significantly more expensive than £77 million on paper. Arsenal need to understand what they're getting into. The full package will cost considerably more. Williams had an uneven season. Injuries repeatedly knocked him out of rhythm, leaving him with 32 appearances and 13 goal contributions in all competitions. Not a disaster, but not the explosive performance the world saw at Euro 24 either. That inconsistency is the risk Arteta and his staff have to weigh up. Liverpool are present in this story, but the Merseyside club apparently have Bradley Barcola as their priority, a player of a similar profile who looks preferable on several counts. Their interest in Williams feels more like background noise. Arsenal, on the other hand, are actively seeking a wide attacking addition. After unsuccessful talks over other candidates, the Spaniard's name has emerged again for a reason. If Athletic do not blink and hold firm on their £77 million release clause, and Williams indicates he is open to a move to London, this could develop quickly. For now, it's only the sounding out stage. Arsenal don't make calls for no reason. Darwin Núñez wants Barcelona. Spanish newspaper Sport say it plainly: the Uruguayan is prepared to take a major wage cut just to make the move happen. For someone earning sums at Al Hilal that most players in Europe cannot get near, that says plenty about his current position at the club. Saudi Arabia has not worked out for Núñez. He joined Al Hilal from Liverpool for £47 million last summer, bringing his complicated English adventure to an end. Yet he has not become the undisputed first-choice striker there either. The club placed their faith in Karim Benzema, and Núñez found himself in the shadows. Al Hilal are not particularly reliant on him, and he is hardly desperate to sit on the bench under the Arabian sun. Simone Inzaghi, who manages Al Hilal, has approved his departure. That is now the club's official stance. Jorge Mendes, Núñez's agent, is currently in Barcelona, not visiting, not working on another client's deal. He is there with a specific purpose. Mendes is looking for a formula that gets the Uruguayan back into elite European football. Darwin's ideal scenario is Barça. He is watching the Catalans' transfer activity and keeping an eye on what happens with their centre-forward position. For Barcelona, Núñez is a budget option, a modest transfer fee, and a player willing to cut his wages. Exactly what a club with financial restrictions needs if their priority negotiations hit a wall. The priority target is Julian Alvarez. Barcelona see him as their main candidate for the striker role. If Alvarez does not agree, Núñez's name will appear immediately. The connection between Núñez and Barcelona goes back to 2020. While he was still at Almeria, he came close to joining the Blaugrana. Barcelona offered to buy 50% of his rights. Benfica stepped in, took him for £28 million, and it was there that Núñez became a European-level player. Barcelona missed the moment then. Now comes the second round. The club are also concerned about Ferran Torres' future. PSG are actively interested in him, and if the Spaniard leaves, the gap in attack becomes even more obvious. That only improves Núñez's chances of having his candidacy considered seriously. Mendes is in Barcelona, the Uruguayan is waiting, and the clock is clearly running in days.